Today's episode is sponsored by Datadog, the cloud-scale monitoring service that provides comprehensive visibility into public cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud environments with over 250 integrations. Datadog unifies your metrics, logs, and distributed request traces into one platform, so you can investigate and troubleshoot issues across every layer of your stack. Use Datadog's rich, customizable dashboards and algorithmic alerts to monitor cloud migrations in real time. To start a free trial today and Datadog sending you a free t-shirt, visit datadoghq.com/cloudcast to get started. That's datadoghq.com/cloudcast.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. It is good to be back with you. This is sort of part two of a series of shows that we're doing on innovation and entrepreneurship. As some of you know who've listened for a couple of years, we do some work with the MetLife Digital Accelerator program, which is powered by Techstars. That's a program that's right here in our backyard in Cary, North Carolina. If you listen to the last show, you know that we did interviews with a couple of entrepreneurs, a couple of founders for their companies. Today, we're going to do two more. We're going to talk to a couple of companies that are more focused on what you would consider to be more traditional kind of medical types of companies. This program originally got started as around insurance tech. This is really looking at different aspects of medicine. And again, all of these are really about, what the cloud enables us to do, what this massive amount of technology that we have at our fingertips allows us to do, and really kind of changing how we think about how we interact with things. And for me, this is kind of a really important show. It talks about how we interact with doctors and dentists. It talks about cancer, something that in fact it impacts, unfortunately, a very large number of us. It impacts myself, not me personally, but family. And I know tons and tons of people who've been impacted by that. So some really interesting stuff we're going to talk about with that. And also we're going to talk about some stuff around, how you interact with your dentist. And a lot of people forget that, it's not just about your teeth, how you look, but, having failing dentures or dental implants and so forth can lead to all sorts of other illnesses and things that'll get up into your brain. So a lot of really important work going on the things that are going on in this show. We had a chance to talk to two companies, one called Smiletronix, another called Lazarus. Smiletronix is focused on a kind of more proactive ways for you to have an idea of what's going on with your teeth. Maybe remove some of those trips to the dentist, have a way of having better, kind of more self-care, if you will. And they'll get into how they go about doing that. And then Lazarus is really looking at how to use AI technologies to improve doctors' abilities to detect cancer, all sorts of types of cancers, whether it's skin cancer or things, internal organs to your body. And they do some very cool stuff that allows individuals to do some self-scanning and all. So a couple of really interesting conversations, very smart founders, folks who have a lot of medical background, and they're marrying that with technology. So excited for you to get to those today. We're not going to do any cloud news of the week this week because we're going to focus on the entrepreneurs, but we will have cloud news of the week back next week. So hope you enjoy the two interviews. The first one runs about 16 and a half minutes, 16:45-ish, and then the second one picks up from there. So Smiletronix goes first, and then we get to LazarusAI. So hope you enjoy the interviews. Today's Cloudcast is sponsored by our friends at The Cyberwire. If you have trouble keeping up with the latest cybersecurity news, we recommend The Cyberwire's daily podcast. Each day, they give you an informative 20-minute recap of the latest and most important updates in the industry. They keep their content concise, accessible, and relevant, separating the signal from the noise in an industry overloaded with information and competing messages. We here at the Cloudcast, we listen to stay up to date every day, and we think you should too. So subscribe to The Cyberwire today. You can visit thecyberwire.com/subscribe or search for The Cyberwire, CYBERWIRE, in your favorite podcast app. And we're back. Folks, obviously one of the relationships that we all have is with our doctors, with our dentists, with the people that help us try and stay healthy and also care for us when we get sick. But obviously, as our cultures change, as our willingness to kind of engage in proactive versus reactive healthcare, our ability to pay for things, all those things are sort of fluid and dynamic throughout our lives, and obviously as a result of that, the technologies that we work with, the way that we engage with our medical professionals changes over time. So very interesting conversation we're going to have today. Very excited to have Yashar Faranjani, who is co-founder and CEO of Smiletronix, who also part of this MetLife Incubator program. Yashar, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here.
So before we dive into Smiletronix, give me a little bit of both your background, but also your co-founder's background, and how you decided to get into the space of trying to help people, kind of change the way that they interact with their dentist and take care of their teeth. I'm
from the UK, Persian, British, grew up in the UK and spent most of my life there. Studied molecular biology and then shifted into consulting, like most people do. Decided 2016 to do an MBA after working in consulting for 5 years. Wanted to change, wanted to get out and get some international exposure. So I went to ESA Business School in Barcelona, which is number one business school in Europe. And during that period, I hadn't been to a dentist in 10 months. And I was questioning myself, do I need to go to a dentist? I've got internships to apply for, a lot of projects to do, capstones. And I asked myself, can my phone tell me if the health of my teeth is good or not? Do I need to go to a dentist? And that was the spark of Smiletronix. Can explain now, or I can explain the rest of the co-founders first, and then come back to what Smiletronix actually does.
Yeah, I think we've all reached a point with our phone where there's times when we stare at it and we go, what can you do for us today, right? And I think what you ran into is kind of a common thing that people run into all the time. Is like, my teeth don't hurt, they feel fine, nothing's stuck in them as far as I can tell. Do I need to go to the doctor? So you've decided, we'll get into what Smiletronix does, but as part of your team, obviously you've got to have some sort of dental expertise. How do you bring that into the team when you're also trying to build technology?
Well, the first person that I actually brought into the team, of course, obviously not a dental background, but I've been very much involved with healthcare and interested in technology. In my MBA, I did a module in management of healthcare innovation, and also impact investing. So I was conscious of that space, very much so. One of my classmates actually worked in medical devices for 6 years, both here in the US and in China. So he's American, did class 2 and class 3 FDA medical devices. So he was the first person I recruited within the team, pitched him the idea. Again, loves healthcare, entrepreneur at heart, and he jumped on the board with the idea. And then obviously we had to validate the idea and look, is this technology-wise? We're technologists. We know we can do it from a technology perspective, but from a clinical perspective, does it make sense? So I went to Daniel, who's our chief medical officer now. He is the brother of a friend of mine from the UK who is Spanish and worked in Barcelona. So I went to him to pitch the idea and get his feedback. And initially he wasn't part of the team, but after a few months, it became apparent that he loved the project itself. He was a good candidate from a cultural perspective with us as a team, and he jumped on board as well and became a co-founder, and that's where the team developed from.
Very cool. Very cool. So give us the kind of the high level overview, what Smiletronix does in terms of the technology, and then ultimately, kind of what service or what problem are you trying to solve for individual people?
So Smiletronix is a home dental checkup solution. It involves a device that you put in your mouth for 10 seconds. It images your teeth, and then we use AI computer vision to produce a health report of your teeth. We push that report through to your phone. You get a health score. That score will change over time, so you can track how well you're doing, if you're improving or getting worse. And most important, if we detect a problem like a cavity or gum disease, we will then raise the alarms and say, you need to speak to a dentist as soon as possible. Depending on the stage of the disease, we will then give you a recommendation, and you can then book an appointment, either do teledentistry first, so through the app, speak to a dentist, or if you want, book appointment straight away and go for qualification check and treatment.
Interesting. So, having spent many a day in the dentist chair, so if I'm understanding this correctly, so this device you put into your mouth, I'm guessing it's some sort of like the thing that makes molds when you have to get braces or an implant or something. And it's kind of, to a certain extent, provides a capability sort of similar to an X-ray. Obviously, it's not X-ray and so forth. But you're using imaging to be able to get a picture of what's going on, at least from what's visible externally. Can it also see enough to tell me if there's like a cavity which is within the bone?
Not within the bone. So if there's a cavity within the bone, between the teeth or inside the gum layer, so below into that root side, we can't see. And we know there's a limitation there. But a lot of what dentists do initially, anyway, effectively, this is the first 5-10 minutes of you in a dentist chair when a dentist is looking in your mouth and seeing where problems are before you go and get an X-ray. You can still tell a lot there. And the idea is that we're not replacing your dental checkup. Dentistry is very reactive. It's curative instead of being preventative. So you're using this at home because it's so easy to use. You're using this once a week or once a month at home in between your dental visits. And that regularity of usage allows us to catch problems at a much earlier stage. Hopefully, we prevent them completely. We will give you enough behavioral advice that we prevent problems developing. But if you do develop a problem, we'll catch it at a much earlier stage, which means the treatment's going to be a lot less painful, it'll be easier, and also a lot cheaper for you as well. And once you're sat in that dentist chair getting the treatment.
Right.
So we know that now we can't replace the X-ray part of the checkup, but we can still do a lot of it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, so I'm curious, is this initially targeted towards, we all go through two stages of life with our teeth. One is, sort of baby teeth or infant teeth. We grow out of those, we get into adult teeth. Is this gauged more to start once you have adult teeth, or do you see this as being applicable sort of throughout your life?
We see it as the throughout your life part. A lot of parents have actually asked us, can we have this for our children? You think that it's just adults that have problems, but a lot of children are getting cavities nowadays because of high sugar content, and other chemicals in food as well. So I think the figure is 67% of children have cavities in their milk teeth, in their kids' teeth, which even though these teeth fall out, it can still have an impact on quality of life and health for those children. And obviously, once you're an adult, you only have one set of permanent teeth once you're an adult. If you're putting fillings in, you're getting crowns, you're getting implants, it reduces that quality of dental health that you're going to have throughout the 60 years you're going to have to keep those teeth.
So I'm curious, for any of us that have worked in any sort of industry, when we start seeing companies come along, technologies come along that kind of disrupt a supply chain, if you will, or kind of the interaction that you have with customers, there's always a certain amount of tension, and there's always a certain amount of like, okay, maybe we're gonna reorient the rules. I would think from a patient's perspective, you go, this is great. Less time I have to go to the dentist, less time I have to spend sitting in a chair, going and visiting them, like you said, reduce cost. What's some feedback you've gotten from the dentist in terms of saying, why is this intermediary in between me and my patients? Are they as well qualified as I am? I spent years in dental school.
We've spoken to a lot of dentists, and you get a mixed reception.
Sure.
The dentists realize that the industry needs changing, and especially the associations, the ADA, trying to push for prevention. People think it's not a problem, but there are 500,000 fillings done per day in the US. It's 178 million per year, which kind of shows you that we're not preventing these problems. People are getting a lot of cavities.
Right.
50% of people have gum disease. So there's this push that we need more prevention. Not just for our dental health, but also problems in dental care are linked to other problems like heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, both as an indicator, but also as a cause in some cases. So there's this understanding that we need to improve oral health. And dentists see that, and they see that our tool can become a way for them to engage with their patients better, communicate what needs to be done more regularly. You go to a dentist once every 6 months at most, once every year. Some people don't go at all. So how do you make sure that what people are doing at home is the right, they're doing it correctly, they're maintaining their teeth in the right way, and they're not avoiding problems? So these dentists that are patient orientated and focused on that say that we can engage with patients more often. We can speak to them. Of course, dentists can drive revenue from this as well by channeling more customers. That portion of the population that don't go to the dentist, not because of cost, but because they see it as inconvenient or because they're afraid of the dentist. If you can drive them to the dentist, then it's also a way for them to get a bigger portion of the pie, so to speak. So there is value there for the dentist, even though they will end up losing some money, because if this works, you're reducing implants, you're reducing crowns. So you're reducing these more expensive treatments for them, but they will make up that revenue in other ways and also be able to provide better care to their patients. So they see it as that quality of care tool, customer loyalty tool. You'll have a portion of dentists that don't care about that. They're focused on the bottom line revenue. Those ones won't adopt the product, but we don't need everyone to be on board with this. We need the ones that care about the patients to be on board and have that patient focus.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And, I think given just kind of the dynamics that are in play, I mean, we eat foods that are more acidic, more sugary. They're attacking the teeth. Teeth aren't now made out of some miraculous material. They've always been made out of the same materials they have for decades and ages and ages. So the dynamics at play don't necessarily favor not trying to help people out in some way would be detrimental. I can see where a little bit of education is needed, but there's definitely a lot of opportunity to change it. You and I were talking. Go ahead.
So one thing to add to that as well is, in the US, even in the US, there was a shortage of dentists to meet the demand of the population. But when you go to other countries, especially developing markets, demand for dental care is increasing rapidly, but there just aren't enough dentists out there. So if you can make the whole process more efficient, where dentist time is spent on the treatment stage rather than the checkup, and the kind of some of that preventative communication can come from the dentist through a teledentistry app like ours, you then become more efficient within the clinic. So you bridge that gap where there aren't enough dentists, and you can reach a lot more people and make it more accessible. So it's not just a tool to kind of make money or to improve dentistry here in the US, but it's also, there's a mission aspect that we have at Smiletronix, where we're, in the longer term, would love to work in these developing countries and people that don't have access to dentistry and really help them to improve their health. Yeah. And we don't know yet how that would work. We're still early on exploring that part of the business and technology, but it is something that we hope to have an impact on in the future.
Yeah, no, it is very important. It's like you said, it's having good dental health, having good oral health is something that impacts a lot of other aspects of your overall health. So yeah, being able to, have the potential in the future of someday being able to do that, realizing that, like you said, different countries, different regions of the world, even within a big place like the United States, there's huge differences between, the middle of the country, the coasts of the country, how many dentists there are. Taking all that into consideration is, huge possibilities to try and make a real positive impact on things. I want to talk real quick, just you and I were talking before we started recording, kind of some of the nuances and some of the thinking going on about how do you price something like this? Is it, do you price it as a device? Do you price it as a service? What's some of the early thinking you've had around, how do you make this something that you price it so it's valuable as a business, but also maybe that incentivizes people to be using it in a more proper way or a more effective way?
We actually switched. We initially looked at pricing it as a device model, and now we've kind of switched our thinking to a dental care as a service model, where it's more subscription based. I think that is where you look at markets, the subscription models seem to be taking over everywhere, but that's because consumers tend to like it that way. It's easily scalable. For example, for us, if you want to use the device for yourself and have that checkup for yourself, that's great. But if you want to expand it to your family when sharing the same device, how do we make that easy and flexible for you? So having a subscription model makes it easy because you can just add a few people to it or reduce a few people if people move, if your kids move out, for example, and go to college and you don't want them on your plan anymore. I think that's the way it's going. You look at other healthcare apps and the way they're working, subscription models tend to provide that flexibility for people in terms of payments. Healthcare systems are overstretched, national healthcare systems. I know in the US here, it's a big debate. In Europe, where I'm from, every healthcare system is under pressure. And how do you decide who pays for that? How to democratize that healthcare a little bit? And that's a challenge that we're trying to figure out. And we think that we've landed on a good position for our product.
Yeah, definitely big complicated problems. And obviously, if there are people and companies out there making it either simpler, cheaper, more easy to access and so forth, those are all definitely opportunities to make the system work better or to make, an individual's interaction with their health be a better situation. I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. I know we've talked about a lot of things. Obviously, whenever you're making things that are in the medical space, you've got to go through regulatory things, FDA stuff, and all. But if people and y'all are still in that process of working through it. But if people are interested in kind of just engaging with your team, wanting to learn more about what you're doing, maybe they want to be involved in one way, shape, or form. What's the best way to engage the team to find out what's going on, find out more on the website, that sort of stuff?
If you get on our website, you can email us at info@smiletronix.com. I do get access to those emails, so that'll come straight through to me. You can also join our wait list on the website if you just want to keep up to date with what's going on, when we get FDA approval, when we're going to launch. So you can sign up there on our website. But do shoot me an email if you want to get involved. If you're in healthcare and dentistry in general and want to help us out or get involved in any shape or form, then happy to have a conversation. I'm a big believer that innovation comes from different perspectives. So if you have got a different perspective and you want to debate over a coffee, then give me a shout.
Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, Yashar, thank you so much for the time today. I think it's fascinating to see kind of this new way that we're thinking about interacting with our doctors, taking more control of our own health and so forth. And what you guys are doing with Smiletronix is a very interesting perspective on that, especially from an oral care perspective. So thank you so much for the time today. Folks, with that, we're going to wrap it up and we will talk to you next week. And we're back. Folks, one of the areas that people are kind of most interested in, but to a certain extent are still a little bit mysterious about how it actually works is obviously around the AI space. We've covered that in various aspects on this show, sometimes digging into the technology, looking at stuff like frameworks like TensorFlow, looking at how do you build systems and scale them. But we've never really dug into AI in a specific domain, a specific type of problem. And today we're going to really kind of dive into something that I think is very interesting. Maybe not always in the most happy way, but definitely something that impacts a lot of our lives. And that's kind of the breadth of things that are all called cancer, different parts of our body and so forth. And, are there ways that we can start to apply AI, better learning techniques, hopefully better diagnostics to help treat it, to help identify it earlier and so forth. So very, very excited today to have Ariel Elizarov, who is co-founder and CEO of Lazarus. Welcome to the show. Good to have you on.
Thanks. Good to be here, Brian.
So you've been around this space for a while, especially around the AI space, but also healthcare. Give folks a little bit about your background, both yourself and your co-founder, and why you decided to really focus around bringing AI to the healthcare space.
Sure. So I actually basically grew up in the healthcare space. Both my parents were physicians. My mom actually became a doctor twice after immigrating here. And so I've basically grown up surrounded by physicians, specifically oncologists. So I know the space super, super well. And I mean, when I ended up studying neuroscience and trying to, at first, become a doctor, I ended up actually focusing more on the AI side because, well, the brain's interesting, but can we recreate the brain in a computer to actually predict things? Not exactly how we do things now, but that's the long-term goal. Yep. Anish, on the other hand, was crazy enough to triple major. And what he ended up doing is studying mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and computer science all at the same time. And the guy is just dedicated in the office from 9 a.m. all the way to about like 3 or 2 a.m., which kind of scares me. But that's and we decided to tackle this space because, well, we've both lost people that we really cared about to different types of cancer. And in both cases, those people would still be alive if the cancer is detected early enough.
Yeah. It's a space that needs, that unfortunately impacts a very large number of us in one way or the other, whether it's directly or indirectly. And, we all wish that it would get cured, it would get solved, it would get better handled. So very excited to talk to you about kind of how you're helping to attack this space. Talk to us a little bit about Lazarus. What's the scope of what you guys are trying to solve in terms of AI and how it applies to various cancers?
Sure. So I'll kind of start this off by saying most of the time, fighting cancer is not a question of how do we make the best possible medications. It's a question of how early can we catch it. So stage 0 and stage 1 cancers have a aggregate survival rate of about 96%. So it's a game of, if we can catch them early, most people will survive. So like one example is pancreatic cancer, 96% at stage 0 survival rate, and then less than 1% at stage 4, which is awful. So what we do is we take patient health data. So that's images, patient health records, so like things like FHIR connections, DICOM connections, et cetera. And now we're also moving into genetic data, and we basically predict the risk of patients developing those diseases. So it's a combination of, so let's say for skin cancer, we take a patient's health record. We have a model that's pre-trained on about 1.2 million health records for skin cancer specifically. And it figures out what the risk rating of that person developing skin cancer is. And then we take the image, run what's called a CNN, a convolutional neural network, on top of that image, combine the risk rating from the health record, and because of that, we're able to get 91 to 92% accuracy, depending on lighting, with our models. And we improve. So for one example, in cervical cancer, we improve physician accuracy in diagnosing cervical cancer cases from 76% using just Pap smears to well over 93%. And that's a big jump.
Yeah, no, my mother was diagnosed late last year with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was sort of struck. The interaction with her doctor, her oncologist, sort of felt like it broke down into two things. One of it was obviously kind of a lot of kind of personal interaction, bedside care, kind of helping people cope with this idea that you have something that could be, potentially terminal, but could also be cured. And then so much of it was just a lot of data about them saying, this is the type you have, this is the size of it, this is where it's spread. This is the, very much the sort of data and the odds we think there are of curing it, given treatment A, given treatment B, given treatment C, the stages you're at. So it was fascinating to me how much of it was data. I think I had this perspective that it was more kind of surgery and other biology. So the fact that you're able to quantify it so well is fascinating. Help us have a better sense of, how much do these new models that yourself are building, other research are building, how much is that, are we seeing those jumps in sort of every type of cancer that can be potentially positively impacted against?
Yeah, so I'll start that off by kind of just describing the field. So specifically in dermatology, it's a little terrifying. So about half of all melanomas are misdiagnosed or missed, which is scary. And when it comes to false positives, only 10%. So University of Washington published a report on this. Only about 10% of moles that are sent to biopsy are actually cancerous. So we're kind of seeing this terrifying trend of we're not as good at medicine as we thought we were, or as the layperson kind of thinks we are. And the further I dive into this, the more I realize, hey, if we do a data-driven approach, we're more likely to succeed. And how can we prove that? Well, because you have, underperformers in every specialty and overperformers in every specialty. And it can't just be random chance that those people at the very top are doing well. So one example is, I mentioned cervical cancer earlier, 76%. So the accuracy rate, and this is just specificity, by the way, sensitivity is kind of like 40s, 50s for Pap smears with primary care doctors. 76% accuracy for Pap smears when used by primary care doctors, 95, 96, 97% accuracy when used by gynecologists. There's a disparity there.
Yeah.
So what we do is we fill that gap. And we feel like we can do this. Maybe we can't improve the average dermatologist's accuracy rating. We can sure as hell improve the average primary care doctor's accuracy rating, which is kind of the market that we're targeting.
Right.
Because we can turn our value prop is we turn your primary care doctor into a gynecologist, dermatologist, or oncologist for 5 minutes. That's all they need.
Yeah. Bring the tools to give them sort of superpowers without, having to go through all of those years of school or specialization. That's a very, very powerful thing to do at scale.
Exactly.
We talked a little bit before the show. You were kind of giving us a sense of, the company has been out. It's been generating revenue. Give us a sense of talk about the products you have today, and then the products that you expect to get out tomorrow. I was shocked at how many you're able to do, but I guess it gives a sense of maybe how much you can apply the same sort of models to different types of cancers.
Yeah. So the products we have out today are in skin and cervical cancer. And that's because skin and cervical cancer are, well, two reasons. Number one, FDA, which we're not so much worried about because they just publish new regulations, which help us. But skin cancer and cervical cancer are also really prevalent in the population. So specifically CIN for cervical cancer. That's why everyone gets pap smears, or every female gets pap smear. And then skin cancer is super common because we all forget to put on sunblock.
Yep.
Variety of other factors. What we're going to tackle by the end of the year, we're working with researchers from Mount Sinai right now on this. So the two cancers are uterine and ovarian, as well as ectopic pregnancies. Ectopic pregnancies aren't really cancers, but it's still technically a tumor. And then by the end of next year, so by the end of 2020, we plan to have 10 total. And that includes lung, breast, colorectal, prostate, and vulvar cancer as well.
Wow. And the ability to do that in a short period of time is really encouraging. And it's, it sort of hopefully lends itself to the idea that these models can be scaled to a lot of diseases, or at least a lot of variants of cancer in a short period of time, which is really exciting. So for somebody when I was learning about the company, one of the things that jumped out at me was, I've got a couple of kids who are very, very pale skinned. We live in North Carolina. The sun beats down on us all the time. We should own stock in sunblock companies. Talk a little bit about your first consumer product, because a lot of what you do is with hospitals, but talk about the consumer product that helps us, take pictures of moles, map them out, help us better understand what's growing on our skin.
Sure. So we have a product called Health AI, and one of the core features of it is you can take a picture of a mole, and it basically helps you self-screen. Kind of like, have you ever seen one of those charts, the ABCDE charts? Is it asymmetrical, or the border's fuzzy? Does it have more than one type of coloration? Is the diameter wider than a certain measurement, and then does it extend or protrude outwards? It basically works in that same way. But it automates that whole process. So it's a CNN-built convolutional neural network built on about 150,000 images. So that one's less robust than the ones that we use in a clinical setting. And we're trying to bring up how accurate it is. But what it does do is it does increase an individual's accuracy significantly. It makes it significantly higher than them trying to do it on their own, because we're overly sensitive to potential malignancies. If anything is wrong, then we're very, very concerned. But a lot of the time, we also miss those malignancies. So we have this weird dichotomy of being both overly sensitive and overly specific.
Right.
And what this does is basically tries to fix both things.
Yeah. Well, and as you said, such a high percentage of skin sort of abnormalities, if you will, are misdiagnosed or sent on for yet another set of treatments. And if you can impact that, that's a huge thing. Sort of one last question, because I mean we could probably go into all sorts of depth about the AI models, and there's people who are super into that. Who are you targeting? If somebody was listening to this and they are with a healthcare system, or they are somewhere in sort of the healthcare supply chain, if you will, who might be the best people to reach out to you in terms of going, hey, how can we learn more about what you're doing? How could we apply what you have to our system to try and provide better healthcare? Is it the hospitals? Is it the doctor networks? Is it something else that's sort of the best initial fit for your technology?
A little bit of both, but I would say mostly hospitals, simply because of the fact that hospitals have a lot of primary care doctors, and usually you want to give the most accurate amount of care at the most efficient rate. And oftentimes physicians, so I always say that, hey, we improve accuracy and we also save time for doctors. But in reality, what we do is we save time for doctors so that they can actually talk to their patients. Yeah. Because if they're scrolling through the medical record, if they're not examining every mole, they can actually talk to their patients. And that's it's something we're really missing from the healthcare system right now.
Yeah. Having lived through the cancer scare, the more time you can spend with your doctor talking through it is incredibly valuable and important.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, in a lot of cases, it's primary care doctors don't make mistakes because they're not incompetent. They know what they're doing. The problem is that they're so overloaded with data and they have to think about so many different things that cancer just goes to the back of their heads because, well, you're coughing, you're sneezing, you might have a bacterial infection. They're going to deal with that right now. But hey, look, there's a weird mole. We can't focus on that right now because, you need some antibiotics.
Right.
And what we do is we basically shorten the amount of training needed to get to that point. And we also increase the accuracy basically overnight for those doctors. Yeah,
no, that's fantastic. And again, medicine changes, the amount of patience we have for things change, and we're always trying to be more educated. So yeah, the more time people can have to have time to think and to do things properly is super important. With that, I'm going to kind of wrap it up. If folks want to reach out to you, whether it's learn more about what you're doing or potentially engage with you, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Sure. So either connect with me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at e@LazarusAI.com. So the letter e@LazarusAI.com.
Very cool. We'll get all that stuff in the show notes. Ariel, thank you so much for the time today. We really appreciate it. Hope folks, it's great to have the maturity of these AI systems coming along, but more importantly, getting them applied to things that impact really important parts of our life is great to see. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. And thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.